Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Susan Lynn. I'm a psychic and a medium. Thank you so much for tuning into this video today. Today, we're going to be talking about politics, and we're going to be talking about the very temporary coup in Russia. And we're going to be talking about what that means for Lukashenko, for Belarus, for Russia, for the United States, for Ukraine, for the world, right? So if you're new here, I am channeling this message. I'm going to be collaborating with my spirit guides, and 60% of their energy is going to be coming through, and 40% of Susan's energy is going to be coming through. I am here, the Susan part of this collaboration is here to translate what the spirit guides are saying to you. You can check out my playlist. There's real 100% channeled messages on my playlist. I prefer it this way. I think it's easier to get the message across. I think they say humans understand other humans, right? They understand it when the message is more understandable when it's blended. Okay, but you can see sometimes I get hung up and it's not, the translation is a little slower than others. It really just depends. So let me get started about this coup. You know, guys, I did a video on this 2 days ago, and honestly, the energy was so strong that I was talking super fast, and it was like I had a fire hose connected to my own energy, and it was like, you know, coming out of me full strength. And I just felt like it was too much. Number one. Some of that was because I was connected to the energy that had just happened. There was a lot of anger and a lot of fear, and all of that energy was coming through me. Also, there was a bit of a warning there that the guides wanted to give the world about duplicity and about discernment. And they still want that. They still want you to hear that of all of this, what are they saying? Something about mice and men? I don't know. They use this stuff and I don't have time. I've only got 40% of my own brain here. So when they do things like that, I can't quickly analyze it and tell you what they're talking about, but I will tell you what they're saying. And sometimes later I will put it on the screen once I have a chance to look it up and see what the hell they're talking about. So anyway, we all need to settle down. This energy is really janky. Like when I'm in it, like I'm kind of vibrating, and this is 2 days later. So you can imagine what the first video was like. Okay, duplicity. Nothing is what it seems. Now, this is a good, this is going to be a good example for the world to see that. We're going to learn. Once again, they're talking about, they would like to compare this to when you had the court, you had the king and queen in the court, and you would have palace intrigue, right? You would have maybe the cousin of the king was plotting to overthrow the king, but with his enemy from another land. You know, this stuff is not just history. This is real. This stuff really happened. And they want to say that the world citizens have gotten wrapped up in perhaps, I mean, not to be judgmental, but they're saying celebrities or in the lighter side of life. And that has, when we do read about these things that are shocking, we tend to think of them as entertainment and not as real. So you may read about some true crime or hear about some incredible triple crossing, but it doesn't seem so real to us. And what they're saying is this is coming home to roost in a new way, that the energies are going to be showing us in a real reality, real time way, that we need to be more discerning. And we can't just trust what we hear, what we see, what we think we know, because many times what we think we know is simply evidence that backs up our preconceived notion about what we know, right? We throw away all the stuff that doesn't match our preconceived notion of the world or of a situation. And this is a good time for me to tell you, don't take everything I say as gospel. For God, don't do that, right? I personally would take what is transmitted today as one data point, and then get yourself some other data points and then compare them. And if it all checks out, yeah, bring it on board as something that you are ready to believe in. But don't just take any one person's, information. Also, beware of people who are trying to scare you, right? That's just a natural thing, that when the energy is so janky and so weird, we feel fear. Now, the other thing that you need to understand is the human mind, we mask a lot of things, but our body feels it, right? Our body feels the fear. Reality is that we're not all that removed from hunters and gatherers, right? And we still have this survival instinct. And so when our body feels fear, and that fear can be, oh, the weather's changing, or, oh, geopolitical, power shift is happening. We feel the fear anyway, even though our mind might say everything's okay. But what happens is that we seek information to quantify, to qualify, to shore up the idea of why we should be afraid. So it goes back again to that preconceived notion. You're feeling fear, you're going to look around because you know there's something to be afraid of, because you feel it. So you're going to look around and say, what is causing me to feel this way? And then you're going to find something that you're going to say, this is causing me to feel this way, right? So take a breath, take a breath when you feel this weird energy, and know that there are changes afoot. Getting ready to tell you guys straightforward what I feel like is happening. But I would also say that things are in hand. So let me talk about what's happening. So, unless you've been under a rock, and I applaud you if you have been, there was a mini coup that happened over the weekend where one of Putin's henchmen, now just to give you a quick rundown, there's Putin, there's Prigozhin, who I might call Prig, people call him Prig, and there's the Kadyrovs. There's three power structures in Russia. Now, this is by design. Putin has decided that this is the way that he can operate outside of world laws without being held accountable. So he uses these warlords, these mafia warlords like Prigozhin and Kadyrovs, to do his dirty work. And in return, they bring him money, and they do his dirty work. So for Prigozhin, for the Wagner group of the Wagner group, however you want to say it, the Wagner group, he has outfitted them. He's given them military weapons, high grade military weapons. And so in this way, he's really done a very formal kind of agreement with the Wagner group to help in Ukraine. Now, the other thing you need to understand about Putin, and this is where we get into this duplicity thing, Putin has been known to want to appear weak. Everybody thinks he's Mr. Push a person out of a window, right? But in reality, there's no fingerprints. Nobody can point to Putin to say that he did those things. Did he do them? Most definitely, likely, but he likes to keep people jumping and guessing. He doesn't want anybody to know what he's going to do next. And he often plays his own inner circle as well as his two warlords against each other and against him. It's sort of like governing by mass confusion, right? If nobody knows what's happening, then there's a chance. It's a sort of, the guides are showing me a smoke screen. If he creates a smoke screen, then, and he is the one that's pulling all the levers, this is theoretically, then he knows when he can go out of the smoke screen. He made it, therefore he knows how to exit it. Now, this has worked pretty well for him in the past. He's looted and plundered Syria, Kosovo, parts of Africa, through these warlords, okay? So now what's happened is that Putin went out on a limb attacking Ukraine. His military prowess, his military expertise is zero. He has zero. He proved himself to be a terrible war president. He proved himself to be a terrible commander-in-chief of his army. And at the same time, Prigozhin, or Prig, who's in charge of the Wagners, proved himself to be surprisingly, a very good strategist and a very good war leader. Now how he did this is very important for you to understand. This, for everybody watching this video. You can lead with an iron fist, or you can lead with this sort of sociopathic, bizarre personality where your soldiers, you treat them like gold. You never strand them. You give them the serious, high-grade weaponry, materials, vehicles, ammo that they need. And should something happen to one of them, you bury them with honors and you be sure to take care of their family. And therefore, all the other soldiers know you got their back. You are truly a commander that they are willing to follow into the war. Because also, as the commander, he pulled his troops out. He didn't send his troops into that meat grinder in Ukraine. They were in the back. They were safe. Okay, so the troops know this guy has their back. Now, at the same time, this crazy, sociopathic, terrible, terrible man who is Prig is torment. He will also torture you. War crimes out the wazoo. So at the same time, you also know that if you step out of line, that you will be held accountable and or killed summarily. Like, just, there is no tribunal, there is no court. So he runs a tight ship, and he governs it through this, system of, I'm going to take care of you and you can trust me, but if I can't trust you, you're a goner. Okay. So he has a very tight force. They'll do anything for him, anything. And he also picks these people based on their own sociopathic craziness. They have to be willing to torture. They have to be willing to kill. Okay, so he has just handpicked his army. Let's put it that way. Okay, so this is what you have. This is what this man has been able to build and create over the past 5-8 years through deposing. I mean, the guides are saying he has deposed. He has created coups in other countries. He's helped take over governments. He's a bad actor, and he's got an army. And when Putin armed him and gave him not only an army, but, surface to air missiles and heavy weaponry, then he had a real army, right? So what's happened is that Prigozhin was really starting to get mad that Putin's army just flat out sucked. I mean, they're just a terrible army. They're not well trained. They're not disciplined, and they're not outfitted. Many of them were just on the farm 6 months ago, and now they've got a rifle in their hands and they don't know what to do with that, right? So, and Putin was making bad decisions. He was listening to his generals who were making bad decisions. According to Prig, the strategy was all messed up. And according to Prig, he could have taken over the army, had Putin let him, and literally routed Ukraine. Now, I don't think that's true, but I definitely think that Prig would have been a much more formidable opponent than the Russian army. So what happened was there started to be infighting, and there's been videos about this. This isn't new, you guys. There's been videos where the Russian army was literally fighting the two warlords, and especially the Wagner group. They were fighting each other because the Wagner group was seen as getting special treatment. They got to hang back at the back of the war zone, and the Russian army conscripts were being pushed into the cannon fodder. Okay, so then, so they started fighting each other. Next thing you know, and what happened to cause all this to go down is that the Russian army literally bombed the Wagner group and killed, I think, 30 of his men. Now, again, you kill 30 Russian military conscripts and it's like, oops. But you remember, Prigozhin is going to stand up for his men. He's not going to let somebody kill 30 of his men. For one thing, each of those men is worth a lot of money. He put a lot of money into training them. He put a lot of money into outfitting them. You can't just replace one of his crazy soldiers with somebody off the street. It doesn't work like that. So now Prig had to do something. His men are looking at him like, hey, what are you going to do? What did he do? He got some tanks and he rolled all the way up into Russia. And he actually went to Rostov-on-Don, the southern part of Russia. There's a major defense ministry building there with also a very large cache of arms. He drove his tanks right up to it and pointed their turrets at the building. So, that's the guides, if you're a longtime watcher, you remember the guides talking about counting coup, right? So you remember that in the Native American culture, you would run up to your enemy and touch them. And if you didn't get killed and you were able to come back to your own, band or your own warriors, you counted coup. That's a very brave warrior. Well, this is what Prigozhin did. He went right up and pointed his guns at basically the representative of the Russian military and said, I got you if I want you. In the meantime, he shot down several planes, including one that was a very specialized aircraft that was sort of like a version of a command center in the air. Now, Russia cannot just replace these aircraft because, well, there's sanctions against Russia. Anything they buy has got to be off the black market, and it's got to be assembled. It's got to be shipped and assembled. I mean, it's a much different process for them to replace some sort of weaponry. It's not an easy task. So this really hurt Russia because they were already getting low on their aircraft. So what you have here is Prigozhin telling Putin, who are best buddies in a warlord kind of way, you screwed up and I'm really unhappy with you. And I could really take you out if I wanted to. And I'm thinking about it. But because I love you, brother, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to roll back. Okay. So then you saw that Putin didn't even show his face for 2 days. We didn't even know if he was alive. Right. And then you hear this missive out of the Kremlin, supposedly from Putin in those 2 days, that Lukashenko in Belarus is going to broker a deal between Prig and Putin, and he's going to take Prig. And Prig is going to have to get out of Russia, and he's going to have to take his troops, and he's also going to have to give back those super heavy artillery that Russia gave him, right? So what if you're just reading the headlines, you might be like, well, that's that. Honey, that is anything but the case. Anything but the case. If you guys think a warlord like Prig, who goes to Africa just for fun and deposes leaders and steals their diamonds and gold, if you think somebody like that is just going to be like, pushed away, you got another thing coming. That's not the case. So the energy. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to caught you guys up. I'm going to go into the energy. So the energy is that Putin is really scared. I mean, he is shaking in his boots, scared. He doesn't have a lot of options. He knows that the energy is that he's surrounded, he's walled off. He's very protected. I mean, taking Putin out is no easy task. If it were, it would have already happened because he's been a pain in the backside of a lot of people that have a lot of power, including the oligarchs, many of whom are now, visiting their relatives in heaven. So if he was that easy to take out, he would have already been taken out. But He is scared. Now, we have the energy of Prigozhin, who's in Belarus. And this morning, which is like tomorrow for them, or, they're many hours ahead of us, Lukashenko said, there's three problems here, or there's three people here. There's me, there's Prigozhin, and there's Putin. And all three of us misread the situation. And now we're going to try to fix it. And he literally said that if Russia or the Kremlin falls under the rubble, none of us win. We all fall under the rubble. He literally said those words. If Russia falls under the rubble, we all fall under the rubble. Now that's a big, these people like Trump that shouldn't say the truth out loud, that do it, blow my mind. Like, why was that like a self-own? Do you have like truth serum in your blood or something? What's the matter with you? He should have never said that, because now the whole world knows that Lukashenko thinks that Russia could go under the rubble, and Lukashenko thinks that if that happens, he as well as Belarus is going to go under the rubble. It also telegraphs the message that we three need to stay together, right? We're more powerful together. Me, Prig, and Putin are more powerful together. So let's keep our power, right? Now, something the warning that the guides wanted to say, besides the fact that there's duplicity here and that we can't take any of this at face value, okay? The warning here is that there's this nuclear, I think it's a building, a defense building in Vermont that holds some sort of nuclear. Maybe it's where one of the buttons are. Now, again, you guys, there's no one button. I know that Biden carries around the nuclear football, but that nuclear football has multiple people that have to push the button. It's not just up to Biden or Putin or whoever has the codes. Typically, there's the person who pushes the button, but there's a series of, even in crazy places like Russia, just a series of stops. And the guides have told you, and I'll repeat it, whether you believe it or not, the aliens are not going to let us nuclear blow up ourselves. They're not going to let us do that, not because they love us, but because that resulting vibratory damage will damage other existences, other realms, other planets, and that is not acceptable. You can burn your house down, but you can't burn the neighborhood down, okay? So don't worry about the nuclear problem in that way. But there is a nuclear problem and that we do need to be concerned about. It turns out that one of the places that Prig sent his men was to that place, Vermont, or however you say it, in Russia. He went to these two places, okay? And why, right? Well, one is this the whole southern command defense for Russia and Rostov-on-Don, and the other one was the nuclear, building, let's just say, or the nuclear division. That's where he sent his people. Now, the fact that he's come back and now he's been relegated to Belarus, there's something going on, you guys. The thing that I thought initially was, well, here you have a madman. He's literally a madman, a warlord, a sociopath who is in Belarus. And it makes sense. A lot of what Putin does is he gets this guy to do his dirty work. So it makes sense that he would say, now attack Ukraine. Now, one thing that can happen is that really and truly, Prig could do something terrible, and Putin is going to be like, it wasn't me, man. I got rid of him. He was bad. He was a bad man. I got rid of him. Right. So it cuts the ties to Prig, and it allows Prig to do something crazy, because Prig doesn't care. He's already wanted everywhere. I mean, if he takes a step in the wrong direction, he's going to be in The Hague. Okay. So he doesn't care. So you have a man who doesn't care about the law, doesn't care about anything, doesn't care about human life. He's a madman. He's a sociopath. All he cares about is power and money. And now he's free. He's cut from Putin to do whatever he wants. And supposedly Lukashenko is babysitting him, right? So this is sort of a problem. Now, the other thing that I'll finish that thought. I do see that Putin wants to fix his problem. Okay, he wants to fix his problem. What his problem is not Prig. His problem is his own ineffectual. He is not the masculine, powerful man anymore. He's been exposed. So one way he could fix this problem is to, I just heard the words, go out in a blaze of glory. Go out in a blaze of glory. Now that could mean that he sends a dirty bomb or he blows himself up. I mean, he's not a sissy. If he needs to kill himself, he'll kill himself. I mean, I don't mean that to say he's not a sissy. That's maybe the wrong way to say it. He's not afraid of killing himself. Trump would never kill himself. Some people would just never do that, right? Some people are like, yeah, if I got to do it, I got to do it, right? Putin is that kind of person. If he needs to kill himself, he will kill himself. So he has that kind of Hitler in the bunker energy to me. Like he's already in a bunker. He's sort of running out of options. And perhaps he's going to do something and then kill himself, right? Now, is that nuclear? I don't think so. Is it a dirty bomb? Possibly. Is it, they already blew up the dam, right? So he's capable of doing things that could really harm people on a mass level scale. But what I have to tell you guys is that when I go into this energy, really what I see is the United States and some other democratic countries, maybe Australia, maybe the UK, maybe Canada, maybe, other democratic countries coming together to put a lid on this tension. All along, the United States has said, as long as this is a fight between these two countries and it doesn't affect a NATO country, we're going to support Ukraine, but we're not going to get involved, right? We're not going to get involved. And that's kind of the energy here, is that we're not going to get involved in this. But if you do something that's going to affect, and they're telling me some of the nuclear treaty, some of the NATO countries already met and they're trying to pass, and I think they're trying to do this here in the United States as well, pass a resolution that says that if that nuclear reactor in Ukraine is damaged in an attack, that NATO can consider that an attack on all the countries. This is Article 5, I think is what it is. So Putin knows that, right? They keep neutering him. They keep cutting off his ability to do things because he knows that it's all for sure over if NATO gets involved. If NATO gets involved, we're talking about regime change. We're talking about Putin's out and the West will put in someone to run Russia. And in the meantime, if they don't do that, China's going to take a chunk of Russia. Everybody's going to take a chunk of Russia, and Russia's going to break apart. And then people like Lukashenko and Orban and different people, they're at risk too, right? So that's why they're all trying to keep the tempers calm. But the problem is that we have a madman that potentially people think got the nuclear codes to launch the bombs from Russia. And that would be why I'm about to tell you that this morning, again, this is morning where I am, but this would be afternoon over there, 3 planes left Russia, and one is headed to DC, and one is headed to, I believe, Beijing or China, and another one is headed to, I can't remember the country. It's these countries change their names all the time. But anyway, it's one of those post-Eastern Bloc countries. Now, why is that? Why are the 3 planes leaving Moscow to go to these 3 places? And how do we even know? Well, because I've already told, well, maybe I didn't tell you. Planes have transponders on them for tracking, because if you don't have your transponder on, another plane can't see you and they can just run right into you, or a fighter jet that's traveling at, Mach speed, boom, it's over, game over, right? So it's really in your best interest to have your transponder on. Sometimes planes do travel without their transponders on, but that's a big risk. So we know they took off for these destinations because their transponders are on, they've transponded their destination. And this is for anybody. There are people that track flights. There's people that track famous people's flights. This is like a little hobby that people do. So I know that these planes have left. That means that the end is near for Putin. That means that Putin needs help. Now, this is a funny thing, right? This is a funny thing because Putin's attacking Ukraine. The United States is helping Ukraine, but yet Putin's going to come to us for help. The same thing is going to happen with Trump, I'm telling you. These people want to be, sociopathic, crazy leaders, but they're not as bad as the Prigozhins out there. They're just not that bad. They're not that bad. So when those bad people start coming for them, they're like, "Uncle, I need help," right? So luckily, the United States can either sit down, whoever is flying to DC, I doubt that it's Putin, right? I don't think Putin's going to come out of his little bunker. To be honest with you, the man is literally terrified. He is terrified, terrified, terrified. I was also getting, well, I mean, they keep giving me too much information. So why are they flying here? Let me just stick on this same track for a minute. I do believe that the words I'm hearing is off-ramp. They are looking for an off-ramp. Putin is looking for a way to save face and to save his legacy and to save his leadership. Okay. Now, he's not that smart, and he's not that strategic, and he's still full of BS. So he's gonna send his person over here with some kind of crazy offer that the US is going to be like, no, that's not going to roll. If you guys have watched me a long time, Biden and I've already done 3 videos on Ukraine. Everything that we're seeing today is exactly what happened in the very 3 videos that I did in the very beginning of this. I told you guys that there was going to be a warlord, a general, a military influence that was going to do a coup on Putin. I actually still see that happening. The question is, whose general is it? Is it a general that the West, wink, wink, agrees to take over? Or is it a general that the West doesn't want to take over? So this is where we are now in the movie, right? This is right where we are in the movie. The West is willing to allow Putin to stay in power if he completely withdraws from Ukraine. Now, this is what we said in the very beginning of the videos with Ukraine, was that we said all of this. But so here we are in today, where Ukraine has pushed the Russian army back to the Donetsk region and to the Crimea region. This is exactly what they did, what the guide said, that it would, that all the struggle would be around the border and in Crimea. And here we are. Now, what they also told you guys is Biden and Zelensky are like this. They're tight. They totally agree 100% that Ukraine should get all of its land back. Biden 100% believes that. Biden is not going to walk out on Zelensky. He's going to support Zelensky. He's going to throw his weight behind the fact that Ukraine should have Crimea back. They should have all their original borders back in their control from where Russia annexed them however long ago that was, 10 whatever years ago. So that's the problem. This is the problem. What is the negotiation like? What is the negotiation like that's happening right now with Putin? What will Putin take? And will it be enough? Okay, so that's what's happening right now. Okay, Putin is a lame duck. He's weak. It would take the whole freaking weight of the West to support him and keep him alive and keep him propped up as the quasi-dictator that he is. Because he doesn't have it. He doesn't have the support of his people. He doesn't have the support of his army. He doesn't have the support of anybody, right? But he is a known entity, and there is something for that in the world order. They would rather, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. So there's a lot of pressure right now for the West to prop him up. If they could make him, this is the big if they can make him withdraw. Okay. Now I can see him withdrawing from the Donetsk. I can see him withdrawing from that. For some reason, Crimea is the big sticking point, and it's always been the sticking point since the very first video I did 2 years ago. The whole Putin wants Crimea. It's his access. It's a port. It's a port. He does not have a port in this part of the world. He needs that port for his oil, for his whatever, his trade. That's why he wants it. So one of the things the guide suggested a while back was that, they're reminding me, was that there could be a deal, that the West could really push this deal where they say, give Russia a 100-year lease on this port in Crimea, but yet Ukraine owns Crimea, and let Ukraine go into NATO. So we've balanced the threat of Russia having a lease and having access to the port. We balanced it with access to NATO. Okay, now that's one whole thing. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm sorry to say, I think the West wants it to happen, and I think they're going to try like heck to make it happen. I'm just not sure it's going to happen. Now, let me tell you why. Well, it might happen for some period of time, for 6 months or a year. It may happen. But here's the other part that you need to understand. That is that Prigozhin is the guy who did the whole social media deep fake, head fake, released the crazy Kraken on the MAGAs through our social media. And he's the one that gave us Trump. He's the one from Russia that convinced a portion of our apparently, vulnerable citizens to believe the crazy stuff about Pizzagate and about Hillary and about vaccines and all this stuff. He's the one that did that. And you want to know what, guys? He's done it in Russia too. He's poisoned the well in Russia. He's done the same social media attack in Russia of the citizens in Russia against Putin. That's why when you see or you see videos when he was doing his coup marathon, it's almost like a slow moving coup. You know what I mean? The O.J. Simpson coup. It's like slow moving Bronco going down the road, but it was tanks, right? Those people greeted the Wagner group with cheers and wanted to shake their hands. And literally, I saw a guy lift his boy up for one of those slaughtering, marauding, terrible human beings to kiss his son's head. It's just unbelievable. So that brings me to what the guides said in the first 3 videos in the beginning of this whole attack on Ukraine. They said there would be unrest in Russia. They said the unrest, it would be civil unrest. It would be, riots and civil unrest. Now, how do you even imagine that when right now, if you went into the square and you simply held up a white piece of paper with nothing on it, they would arrest you? There's videos. People just go up and hold a white piece of paper and they're arrested. They did that to prove they don't even have to put anything on the paper. The paper itself is a threat, and they got arrested. Now, how can you imagine, seriously, how can you imagine civil unrest? Well, because I'm trying to make sense of it, 2 years ago, I'm thinking the sanctions, and you can watch the videos and hear me say it. I'm thinking the sanctions are going to take the food out of the stores, and that's going to cause people to riot, right? Because, I mean, honestly, if you can't eat, potentially, maybe that would cause you to riot. That didn't do it. I mean, you have to understand that Russia's never been a democracy. These people are beat down. They listen to state TV all the time. They are the original indoctrinated people. And they're not well. They're not well. They've been coerced. Okay. So, but what is going to make them riot is if the new voice in their head tells them to do it. And the new voice in their head is Prigozhin. You guys, this is the problem, right? So the West, surprise, surprise. Remember, the guide started this whole video out by telling you about duplicity. Here, the United States is fighting Putin, and here they're going to have to help Putin. It's crazy. I know it's crazy. If you disagree, call 1-800-SPIRIT Guides, press 1 for complaints. I'm just telling you what I get psychically and energetically. I'm not saying I agree with any of it. I do not agree with any of it. I agree with Biden in the sense that if Biden can find an off-ramp and give Zelensky what he wants, save lives, right? Save lives, stop this war, give Zelensky what he wants, give Putin a way to save some kind of face. Because even if he's paying for the port in Mariupol or where, Crimea, or wherever it is, he can tell his people that he owns it. He doesn't have to tell them the truth. They don't know any better, right? So that gives him a way out. He can even do a video where here's our new, we succeeded. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Nobody cares. Tell your people whatever you want, right? So that's one way out. But the pressure, but the reason why I don't think it's going to win is because the very first videos that I saw, everything else has tracked. Everything else has came through the videos that I did. And the video that I did was that a person like Orban, or whatever his name, Viktor Orban, or God forbid Prigozhin, or God forbid Kadyrov, takes over Russia because it is a coup, because they need to quell the uprising. They institute martial law, and Russia sort of becomes a sort of a weird North Korea in the sense that no one can see in, no one can see out. It's locked down because of the unrest. Now, if Prigozhin was to do that, if he was the guy to walk in, he would be able to rule his people because he's already indoctrinated them. So that doesn't make sense. So if he is the guy, then I don't necessarily know if I see martial law. So I think it might be somebody else. And it could even be an oligarch with the backing of one of the generals. So I said in the original video, it could be an oligarch with the backing of one of the generals, or it's a person with military energy. So what does all this mean, right? I mean, well, it means that you've got some heads up about what might be happening. You might see the West, meaning, the United States and Europe and whoever, trot out some kind of peace plan with Zelensky. because I'm just looking at China briefly, because one of those planes is going to China. I mean, there's a reason there's 3 planes heading out today. This is serious. This is a really big deal. They need to let the world know, checkmate. We are now in checkmate. Russia's in checkmate. We can't move. The words are, we're being held hostage. That's right. The guides told me earlier this morning, Putin in Russia is being held hostage by Prigozhin, and to a degree also by Kadyrov. Kadyrov is the other guy, the Chechen warlord that also operates under Putin, and by the fact that he doesn't have control of his own country. He really cannot trust his own military. And he's going through a culling process where he's literally testing his inner circle. That's another thing they were telling me earlier. Putin is going through this thing where he's testing his inner circle, and his inner circle is very small. So I would call this his next level circle. He's testing them by putting their loved ones in prison, by making them mutilate themselves to prove their honor and their loyalty. He's making them literally drink poison, not enough to kill them, but enough to make them deathly sick, to prove that they and what the guides are saying right now is they're going to be drinking poison, but they don't know if they're going to die or not. The point is to prove, I will die for you. Drink this poison. And you've seen this person drink the poison and fall out. And now you got to drink the poison. Right? And if you hesitate, of course you're going to drink it because there's probably a gun to your head, right? But if you hesitate, that means you're not loyal. It's the hesitation that is the test, not the drinking of the poison, right? So on the other side, when you wake up and you're alive, you owe your life to Putin. You're grateful. Oh my God, thank you for not killing me. I thought I was going to die. Thank you for not killing me. You have a renewed sense of loyalty. Okay. So yeah, that's great. That's great. His inner circle has been culled. Maybe he's had to throw some out some windows. But that you didn't call all those people out there. You still don't trust your army, and you still don't trust your citizens because they've been brainwashed to hate you. Now, Prigozhin is not brainwashing the military to love him because they don't. He's brainwashing the military to hate Putin. Sometimes you brainwash somebody to hate your enemy, not to love you, just to stir chaos. That's what they're doing here in the United States. They just want chaos, right? The end result is that right now, because the energy suggests that the United States and China and these other big democratic countries, whoever they are, have enough power to quell this. If we need to send out a particular team to unalive a certain warlord, well, so be it. So be it. Our fingerprints won't be on it. Promise you that right now. So, again, back to that notion of Russia and Ukraine can go at each other. You can burn your houses down. We'll support Ukraine, but you can't burn our houses down. Back to that NATO thing. This is going to affect the rest of the world. We don't want a World War III. We don't want that because let's face it, it's all about the money. This is going to mess up some of our sales. You know what I mean? We don't want that. The only people making money are going to be defense contractors, but everybody else is going to lose money. So we don't want that. So I believe that China and the United States and whoever this is in this country, and I'll look it up maybe and put it on the screen, they're going to come up with some solution. If nothing else, the idea is for there to be this calming period, Like, maybe we're not going to solve this problem, but let's have a break. Let's have a calming period. And you better believe that when Prigozhin is flying to Africa to do his thing with the diamonds and the gold and the looting and the pillaging, there are going to be eyeballs on him. There are going to be Russian eyeballs. There are going to be Western eyeballs. There's going to be eyeballs on him. He's not protected like Putin is. Putin is literally in a bunker, a nuclear safe, nuke safe bunker, right? Prigozhin is not. So he could very well be removed. And then that gives everybody that again, the energy suggests the big power countries are looking for a way to bring the temperature down, to relax the temperatures. And then from there, they can try to create some kind of off-ramp where Putin remains the leader. I think that might happen, but I don't see that as a long-term solution, because Putin has problems that the West can't solve with his own people. His own people have been poisoned. They don't like him. The unrest is going to continue. Plus, then you might see the West pile on and continue to seed even more, unrest. Well, I don't really think that, because the West doesn't want a regime change. I mean, I hate to say this because it makes me, but anyway, the rest doesn't want a regime change because, again, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. They don't want to spin the wheel and end up with somebody worse than Putin. So that's where we are. I don't see nuclear war. I don't see anybody pushing any buttons. I can see a small nuclear accident or a dirty bomb. There's not much that Putin hadn't already done to Ukraine. To be honest with you, there's not much left. But the few things left would be like a dirty bomb, chemical warfare. That's the other thing. And I'm not saying this is going to happen. Please don't hear me say that. You guys, sometimes I don't think you hear all the words I speak. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that these are the things that Putin has available to him. They're far short of a nuclear bomb. And then if he did chemical warfare, I think it would trigger Article 5, because I think that potentially that, I don't know. He's on a short leash. Putin is on a short leash. If he wants help, he's going to have to start acting like a human and be more humane. So this is good. Actually, I think it's good. Listen, if this guy is coming to the West and saying, "Uncle, I need help," then, well, if we're going to help you, you're going to have to stop doing these things, right? You're going to have to start making real inroads towards peace. So I think this is a good thing overall. I really do. And I don't think, whereas I do think there's a surprise coming from Kadyrov, who's the Chechen warlord. There's surprises coming, but nothing earth-shattering, nothing like a nuclear problem. Okay. So I don't think there's any reason to be really afraid right now. I think there's lots of reasons to learn about duplicity. There's lots of reasons to learn about discernment. There's lots of reasons to look at what people are saying about Putin, what people are saying about Prig, and to draw your own conclusions, to not just make it because it feels comfortable to you. Just because it makes sense doesn't mean it's true. I think that's the big lesson here. Just because it makes sense does not mean it's true. Okay. So bone up on your discernment is what they would say. Okay. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. I hope it's been helpful. I've been channeling this, so I have no idea what I said, and I feel like I've just been rambling. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much. I am going to be doing some other videos because there's a lot going on. I'm going to be doing a video on Trump and whether he's going to be pleading the insanity plea, because I think he is, and I think it's going to be for real. Also, since you're watching to the end, I would just say, I'm super excited, super excited that I have an event that's happening in October. It's called Connect to Empower. I've got 6 amazing psychics that are joining me. You can learn more about it at www.connecttoempower.com. It's in October. It's in Chicago. And I just opened up a few more seats. We sold out about 3 times, actually, but people's checking their calendars and things are falling through. So it just turns out that I have a few seats open. If you want to join us, feel free to do so. There's a $77 savings that you can get if you do it pretty quickly. I'm looking at the calendar because that early bird discount will be gone shortly. Again, if you're interested, check. You can learn everything you need to know about it at the website, connecttoempower.com. I am pumped about it. I'm telling you, super amazing people are joining me, and we're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to blow our own minds. All right. Take really good care, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. For entertainment purposes only.